champagne.
I hope I got that. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger. That's Mark, the resident.
Hello there, and happy Deity of Presidential Celebration Day. Bum, 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 bum. It's a day when kids don't have to go to school, but sadly, most of us probably have to go to work. You working on President's Day?
No, I'm not. I'm going to be listening to the I Can Do This All Day podcast all day.
Best day of the year.
I requested President's Day off.
I'm surprised you got it, knowing where you work. I used to get suckered into that one.
I don't do that shit. But the funny thing is, so I requested it. I have not technically gotten verbal or written approval that I've had the day off. So I'm just going to assume that I've got it off. So since it is President's Day, we've got a special treat for you all. And I want to let you talk about this just because I feel like you're the bigger Harrison Ford fan.
And you're letting the cat out of the bag early for our special movie today. We're doing a little bit of a retro rewind to align to our calendar celebrations. And we've picked one of the strongest movie presidents and one of the most presidential of president movies and one of the most hijackingly good movies that we could think of that have to do with presidents. And that is a 90s Harrison Ford classic, Air Force One.
Not the Nelly song from the early 2000s.
That's Air Force Ones with an S. Air Force One, the plane.
Yeah. So Harrison Ford and Air Force One, I had to double check the title there for a second. Got President's brain going on right now. But yeah, that's what we're doing. We figured, you know what, why not honor presidents with legitimately probably the strongest president that we've seen besides the Rock's version of Barack Obama.
Oh, I don't know if he's the strongest president, but he's the most Harrison Fordy president.
Obviously, it's tied to President's Day, but some of the other reasons why we're tying this to our I Can Do This All Day podcast repertoire is the fact that you have someone from what once used to be called the Holy Trinity of Star Wars, now is a ton of different movies. But Harrison Ford is the man. He's a great actor, very widely respected, still active in the industry today. And, you know, when you have Star Wars ties, like, we're probably going to watch a movie with you in. So I'm surprised we haven't done a Mark Hamill one yet. I don't think we will because a lot of his stuff kind of sucks. But Harrison Ford does have a fantastic resume.
How long would this podcast have to go on for us to get bored enough to watch Corvette Summer? Mark Hamill would have to come on the podcast to discuss the movie. If Mark Hamill wants to be on a podcast to talk about Corvette Summer, I'll do the homework. We can do that all day.
I will pretend like I like that movie so much, Mark Hamill.
I watch that shit when I brush my teeth.
So with Air Force One, is there any like nostalgic moments for you? Like, have you seen this movie before the podcast viewing?
Oh, I've seen this movie a ton. Love this movie. And when you suggested it, I was like, well, that's a good movie to watch. Let's go. Because not only is there Han Solo in this, Commissioner Gordon is also in this movie, a man of upstanding character in Gary Oldman. You've got Glenn Close in Nova Prime in this movie. I mean, it just aligns in so many ways to the movies that we've talked about ad nauseum and always love to tie back to.
You are neglecting William H. Macy, who was in a comic book movie in the sense of Mystery Men. But yeah,
I tend to neglect William H. Macy a lot.
They kind of neglected him in this movie too. So
yeah, that's no joke there. No joke there. Had you seen this movie before?
Never seen it. So I am a action fan, and this is dubbed as an action movie, but it's not my type of action. So I like my action heroes knowing if I just look at them, they could kick my ass. looking at Harrison Ford at any time throughout his entire career, with the exception of maybe Star Wars, I'm pretty sure that I could kick his ass.
How dare
But
you? How
that being
dare you?
said, though,
The
I've
sound of his
seen
punch alone makes your jaw hurt. It's always the same sound effect, too.
for action movies, I just didn't consider this to be on my radar, just because, like, yeah, he's not a believable action hero to me from what my childhood in the 80s was, where you've got Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Dolph Lundgren and stuff like that. Like, you have so many people that are like real life modeled out of clay superheroes. And then Harrison Ford is the president. And so he is badass in this, but it's just at the time, yeah, wasn't even remotely close to something I wanted to watch.
Well, I'm glad that you pulled your head out of your ass for this episode and decided that we should jump into the best actor of the 90s. Since you'd never seen this film before, and I knew this when you brought it up, and I was stoked because, again, I could talk about this movie a bunch, and I will. Did you have any expectations going in, knowing that you were sadly disappointed with the leading man?
I wasn't disappointed with the leading man. I'm just those weren't my type of movies that I used to like to watch. So uh, I was expecting it to be a really, really good movie because I respect Harrison Ford and have heard good things about the movie. So I was pretty excited about it.
Some of those reviews are pretty solid out there, right? Dan's favorite movie review site, Rotten Tomatoes, 79%.
I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is not my favorite. We just happen to use it as a reference point on here because sadly, the world has to go to Rotten Tomatoes for reviews, and we are not Rotten Tomatoes fans, so it's just kind of is what it is right now on that. Sometimes they get it right, a lot of times they get it wrong.
I feel like our regular listeners would say that you talk more about Rotten Tomatoes or almost as much about Rotten Tomatoes as you do Fleshlights. So let's be honest, you love them.
I talk about
IMDb,
Rotten
IMDb,
Tomatoes
I'm done. We're done with
scores.
that. We're just that's a fact. We're gonna accept that as a fact, much like the IMDb score, which is a fact at 6.5. Kind of low,
6.5, not a good score.
not good.
Not
Don't
a good
know
score.
who's angry at Harrison Ford at IMDb. Maybe they're just mad there wasn't more William H. Macy in this movie. That could be the case. 61% Metacritic, not looking good, not bad, not The
Metacritic is
Room.
usually a little bit below IMDb. IMDb is, in my opinion, the most accurate. I can count on one hand how many times that I've looked at an IMDb rating and thought, oh, yeah, that wasn't accurate to the movie at all. So I think that's only happened twice to me. And I can't remember which movies they are, but I don't know. 6.5. I guess we'll see as this review goes on if that's actually a legit score.
Your expectations were middling.
No, I thought it was going to be a really good movie.
Do you just not like presidents?
Uh, could care less about presidents.
Same, same. You know what I do care about? Planes, which the title of the movie, all about it. And this movie, I will tell you, for me, is part of the 90s love affair with plane hijacking. Like, there were
Yeah.
so many good plane hijacking movies in the 90s, but do you remember such classics as Executive Decision and Passenger 57 and Con Air?
Con Air, I remember. Passenger 57, I remember. What was the first one you mentioned? I can't. The
Executive Decision
Oh,
with
executive decision. So I need to talk really quick
Seagal.
about that.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So I thought that movie, once again, was going to kick ass. And the reason why is because Steven Seagal was in it, Kurt Russell was in it. And so I'm thinking, like, holy shit, Steven Seagal is going to fuck up some terrorists on an airplane. And he dies in like 5 minutes.
That was the best part of the movie. The best
But
part
that,
was that it went from Steven Seagal and Kurt Russell kick ass to Kurt Russell and John Leguizamo diffuse a situation.
yeah, that's not my type of movie, right? So I'm not about diffusing situations when it comes to an action movie. I'm waiting for that fuse to be lit and explosions to happen.
Well, I mean, the
Uh,
situation was a bomb on an airplane, so you can't say bomb on an airplane.
with Seagal, that was during a time where he was still like legitimate A-list badass action star.
It was during that
So
5 minutes.
Steven Seagal and Executive Decision and Kurt Russell, yeah.
I mean, so sidebar on Steven Seagal. Even the round mound of rebound version of Steven Seagal. Like, have you seen him do like karate demonstrations with Aikido where he like throws people?
Hold on, hold on, time out. You can't say karate demonstrations with Aikido.
Well,
That
I'm just
is,
saying. I'm sorry. Please correct my vernacular.
it is Aikido. You're right
Okay.
there. But Aikido, karate, completely different things.
Sorry. I didn't mean to insult you.
You should apologize to Sensei Seagal. That's who you should apologize to.
I'm just saying that the Aikido demonstrations that he's put on, pretty impressive that he could, you know, deflect against like three dudes at once, that looked like they were trying to touch him in some way.
Those demonstrations are almost as laughable as like those air kung fu guys that like you come charging at them and then they just put their hands up and the air stops them. If you don't know what Aikido is, it seems like it's bullshit.
Isn't
If
it
you ever
for
seen,
protecting against attacks of people with swords?
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
When's the last time you got
So
attacked with a sword?
exactly, exactly. And but Mike Tyson, they were talking about Aikido and on like some type of talk show, and they were trying to demonstrate Aikido to Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson's like, "Why the hell would I let you grab my wrist?" And that right there was like, "Holy shit, Aikido's fucking useless." Like I'm not gonna let you grab my wrist.
I don't know if you've ever gone down this rabbit hole, and that's the rabbit hole of Steven Seagal videos. But some of the early Steven Seagal like demonstration videos of him are pretty intense and like early on, very imposing gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, so did the first 2 minutes in the credits of Above the Law was really cool. But at the
Bruce,
same time, it's like those are demonstrations. That shit is not real life. So good fucking luck if you try to take on three people and
hey,
think Aikido is going to work.
yo, bro, Steven Seagal's out there on the streets, and he's still out there on the streets, and he is no longer a hard target, but he's still out there. He's living that life that must be working. Something's working.
I think we need to stop talking about it because he does have Russian ties, and I don't want any of that bad mojo coming back on us
Oh,
or
no,
you
no
or the
mojo.
podcast.
No, because we're here. Well, I mean, that is an interesting transition. The Russian ties that we're trying to avoid are very deep in this podcast, in this movie that we're going to talk about. Not in this podcast, not sponsored. No, yet. As the person who watched this movie for the first time, give me your version of Air Force One.
I think Americans go to Borat's home and blow up a roof, and they get like a really bad guy, and then
Very
some
nice.
some extremists and supporter of the very very bad guy decide to hijack the plane of the president to negotiate his release. You've got a president who has combat experience, not very believable in terms of of being that active at the time, but he defends his family, his country, his own personal honor to make sure that you and I can live free. And
In
there's
Die
also some
Hard.
moles in there, and there's also some other shit. But
Mm,
yeah, that's my version of the plot.
I like
Am
it.
I
I
missing
like it.
anything?
The only thing that I'm sad that you didn't include is that he makes sure that these people get off his plane.
Oh, you fucked it up. I was going to say that at the end.
We can say that over and over again. Best line in the whole movie. Oh,
Oh man.
so
But no,
you
seriously, did I
mentioned
miss
this.
anything? Because I feel like that's all the plot was.
It was, but they added a lot of layers to this, right? And I think the layers are the part that make it kind of a decent movie. They talk about um using the 25th Amendment to take over the military because the the president's not found. He could be dead. We haven't heard from him. There's radio silence. Like at what point is nobody running the armed forces there? Kind of an issue. Is the president emotionally compromised? To take a
Yeah,
line from Star Trek, does he have to give
that
it
that
up
was interesting.
because his family, like, I think this was like a blueprint for for
For
an
Star Trek.
for an action that like legitimately would disrupt the American government. Is there a way to block Russians from listening to this? I don't know. No, there's way better security in place now. It's not the 90s anymore.
And for the
Um,
record, not all Russians are bad.
no, they're good. They're good people. And if they can change and we can change, everybody can change.
Everybody can change.
So
That was from a
I,
great movie right there.
that's a fourth great movie. R.I.P. Carl Weathers. Big ups.
Yes, Carl Weathers. Very sad to
Tear,
hear that.
tear.
Uh,
A proud that is a proud American.
so I am hoping that Carl Weathers is upstairs in heaven right now, and he's playing a piano, and he looks to a camera and says, "Hey Dutch, look, I've got my arm back," and he continues to play the
What is he
music.
wearing while playing the piano?
Obviously, his combat vest that he would wear in the jungle.
Oh, see, no, I got to go with the spangly Uncle Sam outfit from Rocky Four. Like, like you got to get the whole picture, right? Though the hey Happy, I saw the clip from Happy Gilmore right after, and I was like, oh,
Oh yeah, that was. I would kill for someone to recreate Carl Weathers as Dylan doing the same thing. Like, so such a awesome movie. And who doesn't do the handshake to Predator? Who doesn't do that?
hey, we've known each other for a very long time and have never done the handshake to Predator.
True, but it'd be
Though
kind of.
multiple times have done the high five from Top Gun.
Yes, we have. That is true.
So Carl Weathers breakover, big ups, big ups to Apollo. Sadly, Carl Weathers was not the president in this movie, or there would have been some real ass kicking. Um, when you think about
Hold
movies,
on, time out.
what?
There should have been a Carl Weathers movie called Action Andrew Jackson, where he plays Andrew
Oh,
Jackson and
he's
he is the
he is
president.
battling slavery one left hook at a time. Wow, that's a
Action Andrew
President's Day
Jackson.
reference there. That's
Uh,
on
this
point.
is this is going to be a great episode. I can
This is
tell.
amazing. Oh, so um, you mentioned that you didn't like Harrison Ford's president here. You didn't find his combat
Never said that.
experience. You
I never
said
said I
he
didn't
was
like the president.
feeble. You used the word feeble.
Never said that.
Okay. We'll rewind. We'll rewind. But regardless, did you like this version of president, the football fan and combat ready? I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna take back my plane president. Like, how do you like your movie's presidents?
I think we all prefer that, right? Like to a certain degree, we prefer that. Yes, we want to have the president. We want to have another action hero protect the president or something like that, right? But in this scenario, I would rather have an old veteran ass kicker of a president rather than someone trying to diffuse a situation. That's for sure.
I'm not gonna lie, the thing I love about this president is he's under 60. Like, wouldn't get elected today, but absolutely love the fact that there's somebody that's like, doesn't need some sort of assistive medication and has not had a colonoscopy yet in the White
Well, that's
House.
that's part of what I said earlier. I think where I said not realistic. I didn't say feeble,
Okay,
but
okay.
not realistic in the sense of like, yeah, you're not going to get a veteran that young as a president. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe that'll change.
I
I'm
mean,
not opposed to that, but
so this came out in the mid 90s, maybe late 90s. what was the last war? But I mean, could he have been
He was a
Cold War?
Vietnam War veteran.
Okay. I mean, that was believable for then. For
Yeah, that was
now, I
believable for them. Yeah,
agree. Like you could get an Afghanistan veteran in
sure,
there.
sure. But I'm just saying, like, when was the last person even in contention that was a war hero or even just a veteran? Doesn't have to be decorated or anything like that. When was the last time someone was younger that was in serious contention for president?
Didn't
I can't
W like
remember.
fly a plane in the Army Reserve?
Yeah, but not. But he was still older, like much
Yeah,
older. Past like
that's true.
you didn't think that George was going to be kicking anyone's ass, did you?
Herbert Walker probably could have beat somebody up.
Not at that age.
I could see Herbert Walker doing the Ron Burgundy, right? The I'll get you
Tom O'Leary and Jack Johnson.
that one. I couldn't remember the names. You were right there for me though. I appreciate you. I like this ass kicking Harrison Ford president. Also, the only actor to ever play the president that shared a last name with a former president.
Although, wouldn't it be awesome if there was someone with the last name Freeman as a president? Morgan Freeman, who's played president like 5 different times.
Yeah.
I swear to like Morgan Freeman has played God and the U.S. president in like at least 10 movies, at
That,
least.
I mean, he's just got that voice where you just want to listen to it. It's buttery. It's amazing.
So Harrison Ford, ass kicking president. Do you find his performance believable with everything? I mean, I know you're a Harrison Ford fan. You're a big Indiana Jones fan. Are you happy with his degree of ass kickingness, or did you want a little bit more, a little bit less? What are you thinking?
I thought that the fight scenes in this movie, though they were not complicated or choreographed, um, were believable to the amount of brute force and close proximity that you'd have on an airplane. It was just like tackle the guy, and we're both gonna roll around on the ground. Like that is actually believable. Do
Yeah,
you agree? Do you disagree? I
I
know
mean,
that he didn't go
I
John Wick and just like fuck everybody up is disappointing, but
right. It's believable for what I expected out of the fist fights and close quarters fighting. So that was like spot on. I was thinking like, all right, he's going to throw a big looping punch, and then the bad guy's going to throw a big looping punch. They're going to hug each other. They're going to crash up against some cabinets and some walls and shit. And yeah, so I thought that was like no surprise there. I'm not counting anything against it, right? What uh, I was pretty impressed by was the gunplay and everything, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But yeah, so I mean, Harrison Ford, I'm fine with the degree of ass kickery that he was dishing
yeah.
out to people. It wasn't unbelievable, in my opinion. I think just the circumstances themselves were obviously a little bit unbelievable, but hey, this is a movie.
I don't know. I think the circumstances were for the time pre TSA, like before there was heightened, before a Homeland Security Department even existed. Like,
Sure, but I mean, the president is not going to let his dummy spacecraft, whatever the fuck that thing was, the escape pod. He's not going to let the escape pod go off, and he's going to stay on the plane. That's not going to happen. So that's what I meant more of like from the realistic aspect. I was like, okay, well, we've got because he's such a brave guy and he's a decorated veteran. Okay, he's going to stay on there and he's going to fight. I'm fine with that. No penalties whatsoever.
yeah, I don't know. I have this odd hope that we might get a president that would be that, um, just that would do that. But
I'm
uh, uh
praying for it. That would be awesome.
yeah,
That'd be
it
so
would be
cool.
pretty sweet. It'd be pretty sweet. Talk to me about Gary Oldman in this movie. I've got to say, love Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman can do no wrong for me.
He's been probably one of the most appreciated and unappreciated actors at the same time because he has such a long resume and he's been in so many different movies and he's really a chameleon. He can transform to whatever he needs to be for whichever type of role, which is probably why he should be in like an MCU movie because they could just keep on recycling Gary Oldman over and over and over again and just have him play different characters.
He should have been
But
Kang.
he's getting up there in age, unfortunately. Hopefully he's around for a very long time and continues to make movies. But Gary Oldman, so I I like him a lot. I was a little bit disappointed with his performance in this because I felt like it wasn't the same type of intensity as I look for in a Gary Oldman villain. Right? I'm talking
Yeah.
about like the villain when he was in Leon the Professional. He's like just this fucking psycho cop, right? And you can feel that psycho crazy energy. That's what I was hoping for this guy. That's what I was expecting, and I didn't get it. You get a little bit of intense
You got the
yelling.
Gary Oldman yelling.
Yeah, but that's it. That's it, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't the, oh my God, this guy's gonna cut up everyone on this plane and feed them to his dogs type of crazy. Like
Yeah,
that's
no, it
my
wasn't even the Fifth Element. That crazy. We didn't get that.
I don't think it was as much of a highlight on him as I would have wanted because I like Gary Oldman so much, just like you like Harrison Ford so much. I was probably looking for a whole lot more for Gary Oldman to have that back and forth with Harrison Ford, which we only got a little bit of that,
We
you know?
did. We only just a little. Were there anybody else in this cast that stuck out to you as, wow, they were great?
No, no. I can tell you a few that I thought were god awful.
Yes, let's go there.
Child actors, and I believe she was probably like a teenager at this particular point. But Liesl Matthews is the president's daughter. She's actually related to the Pritzkers. She's no longer an actor. I think she stopped after this.
She did one more
She
movie in
was
2000.
was okay. So either way, god awful as the president's child in this movie. They should have gotten someone like younger and cuter or someone more spunky as a teenager. That in the middle of the road type of performance just doesn't do it for me. You need to be on, like the spunky kid, or you need to be like, oh my gosh, we don't want anything to happen to the president's daughter. This was like, yeah, I mean, I guess if they kill her, yeah, that's part of, hostage situations. This stuff happens, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of her. And I thought that the casting itself, I thought it was a little bit off because I was trying to think of, is the casting off or is it the directing or the writers? And I couldn't figure out which one it was because there's a few scenes throughout this that you have a stellar cast. Like Glenn Close, fantastic. Uh, William H. Macy, fantastic. You got a few other names in there. Dean Stockwell, for any of those Quantum Leap fans like my wife, yeah, he's awesome too. But I don't think they got enough out of those characters, just like with Gary Oldman. I thought they did it great with Harrison Ford. He did everything that he could. He was able to give off his, tough guy gravitas aura. But Gary Oldman, I think, was a lost opportunity, and I don't think they did Glenn Glenn Close enough justice, and William H Macy. I thought that was just kind of fell flat. What about you? What did you think about the rest of the cast? Any really great performances?
I love me some Elia Baskin, the standard Soviet actor in every movie ever. You know me in the '80s. I love to see my token players. Um, I'm a fan of the Paul Guilfoys of the world, who is in a bunch of stuff, basically playing the same character. Um, so I just like seeing my '80s and '90s standards pop through. Um, I mean, you got to think that they blew the budget on the top line, and you know they needed them special effects to build themselves an Air Force One. They need that special effect money.
I mean, I guess, but it still has like a good amount of people on there that their performances alone should kind of carry the scenes that they're in. I just don't think it happens.
Yeah,
Like, am I crazy to think that like William H Macy has always been a great actor, right? Like I felt like his scenes always fell short. Like he was like the guy from Fargo in this movie, just without the accents. Like he didn't have as much of that, you know.
So I find William H. Macy brilliant in flawed characters. This isn't a flawed character. This is G.I. Joe. So there's not an odd attribute that he can. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like
Yeah,
he is so good in movies where he's depicting a level of emotion and trauma. There's
which you
the
can't really
trauma
do
is
in
he
this
gets shot.
position.
That's the trauma in this movie, right? Like so, it's. I think it was an opportunity for him to get in a high end, high budget movie, and I don't think that he disappointed per se with the role he was given, and I think that that's the that role wasn't written to be a best supporting actor. It was just meant to be a guy. Mr. President, are you okay? Oh gosh, why are you here? Oh, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart would have been amazing at it.
But even Glenn Close, did you think that she was like outstanding in this?
I think putting Glenn Close in as the vice president, I thought she played it well, and I love the fact that at the end she's just like, "No, good." Like, and it's yeah, I like Glenn Close in this movie, and while you were talking about that, right, while you're talking about these performances, you know what my move is. I'm like, man, I don't know who directed this. Maybe it was the director. That maybe we can draw some some lines here, but I didn't know how much I like Wolfgang Peterson movies. Um, you're talking about, especially in the 90s, uh, Air Force One, Perfect Storm, Outbreak. Um, he did Das Boot, Never Ending Story. A lot of things that I enjoy or liked as a kid. So no issues with the director. I think that maybe the writing, maybe that, but I mean, you don't get phrases like "get off my plane" with poor writing.
I was thinking perhaps it's just the 90s movies age poorly.
That may be a very. I mean, they do. Let's be honest, they very much
Most
do.
of them do. Yeah.
I don't think this one aged as poorly though, and
Well,
that contention could be the reason the Rotten Tomatoes score is so high, because I don't think Rotten Tomatoes continues to take feedback, past, whereas IMDb is more visited and could be gaining additional feedback, more sooner.
yeah, but it's not like they traveled back in time to watch this and had the Rotten Tomatoes score set in
But Rotten
97.
Tomatoes was
You know what I mean?
around then, where IMDb wasn't.
Uh, I don't know. That I think that might be a different conversation. I think IMDb's been around for a while, and Rotten Tomatoes just came on a little bit later. But
Rotten
regardless, so let's
Tomatoes
talk a
started
little
in
bit about.
98.
Say that again.
Rotten Tomatoes started in 98. IMDb started in 1990. So you're absolutely right. But
Yeah,
both were there.
but the big thing for me on this movie is I think we can kind of break it down with the additional stuff that we'll talk about. So when it comes to action scenes, we talked a little bit about it before. Um, any other thoughts on like the gunplay at all in your
And
eyes?
you mentioned the gunplay, and I don't think I ever thought about it as this is one of the movies where people weren't like, oh my God, don't shoot that gun on this plane. Like normally it's like everybody's gonna blow out the
Yeah.
window. The plane's gonna break up like the Titanic. It's over. Ah, when really, like, Mythbusters busted this myth that a bullet would just make it kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh, my ears. My ears
Yeah.
are popping.
No, it is. I mean, have you ever been on you've taken a flight where the window, like, obviously the seal is broken on it or something? We fly out of Southwest. So there's that. Luckily, knock on wood, no 737 MAX issues, no loose door panes. But even that flight, did not like explosively decompress and pull people out of the plane. But
Yeah.
that was always the thing in movies, and that you mentioning that reminded me like they didn't use that. The most accurate depiction of people shooting up a plane.
I was okay with like the laissez-faire machine gun spray. Like I was like, oh, cool, they're doing this. They're shooting from the hip and everything. They don't give a fuck about aiming.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm having fun watching that. And I was like, oh, great. So they are actually just going to go ahead, like they're reloading. I know there was one guy that had the magical infinite ammo code that had going on because he shot way more than
Oh, that
like
was Mr.
40
Baskin. That's my
rounds.
dude.
But th- I'm perfectly fine with it. With the planes and like the CGI and the visual effects, I did notice like this is where I try to keep myself in the time period of when that movie was and not hold things against it and penalize it for something they can't help. The CGI in it is obviously, like with how high definition TVs are now and the type of ways that you can stream it, it obviously looks fake. Like the plane scenes and when it's crashing, it's tearing apart. Do you have a hard time watching older movies and seeing like, God, that looks like shit? Or do you just like, okay, it's fine.
I just kind of at this point. Like that's because I let the nostalgia berries, the member berries, just carry me through. Like some of this movie wasn't that bad for me. I mean, I do agree that there's some challenge with some of the VFX, but even the scene where they're transferring people back and forth from the planes and stuff, like didn't bother me. Does it bother you? Does it drive you nuts?
It doesn't bother me. It's I can't help but notice it. That's
Mm.
the thing that is maybe a detractor from the experience, because I'm trying to look at new movies and see like, wow, they totally could have improved this right here because the visual effects were so bad or the CGI or
Do
whatever.
you think
Um,
that that's a result of things that were shot in standard def now
yeah,
being shown in high def?
I think that's definitely a key to it. And if I could go back and watch it in a different format, I probably would. And I think I'm going to try to do that. Like for older movies, if I have the DVD, I think I might just watch the DVD as opposed to take a look at the new, you know, HD version of it or
You're not gonna
something.
you're gonna get
Like
you a Trinitron in the office there. Get a big
I
old
mean,
tube TV.
I have DVD players, and I watched a movie on DVD just recently,
Hmm.
and I was like, yep, God, it's crazy how we used to think DVDs were like so sharp and in comparison to like VHS or
Yeah,
Betamax, and now it's just like, ugh,
that is
do we want
bad.
to watch TV like poor people? Like this is crazy. I always say that to my wife, and she's like, "So do you want to watch a Blu-ray or do you want me to get a DVD?" I was like, "What? Do you want me to watch TV like a poor person? Like get the fucking Blu-ray. What the hell?" That's
That's
just a
funny.
thing that I'll say, but I think that should going forward that should be like a prerequisite. If it's a movie prior to like 2000, you should watch the DVD version of it as opposed to whatever type of 4K stream that might be available or a high def remake of it. Unfortunately, and the CGI and the visual effects, that wasn't a problem to me. The problems were the stereotypes that were playing all the way throughout the movie, and it almost turned out to be like a propaganda movie, and I never would have thought about that before. But everything from the cheesy ass patriotic music at the beginning of the movie and that score definitely didn't fit that movie.
Mm.
And I did some research on that, and I did see that like, oh, they were they were gonna have Randy Newman score the movie, and Randy Newman's score was like too comical for them, and they probably were just like, Randy, I don't think we need you to sing on this. So that's
Why? I'm
that's
such a good
that,
singer.
and that's Harrison Ford in the plane, and so yeah, that's
He's got a
Randy Newman.
president in me.
Can't stand Randy Newman, and he's done so many fucking movies. Like you
Uh,
turn on an old movie, Randy Newman probably sang or did the score for it. But the
Friend of the
replacement,
podcast, Randy Newman.
yeah, the replacement director or the replacement composer did it in 12 days. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense as to why this really didn't fit, in my opinion, the movie. Because I think that was like a big detractor for me. Is like it sets the mood, and when you play that sad ass, half ass patriotic music at the beginning, I'm just like, I don't know if I can get behind this. You know, like unless unless there's legitimate sadness throughout the entire movie, I need to be a little bit more upbeat, you know, orchestral, as opposed to just like a brass band playing some patriotic music. What did you think about the music?
Didn't even stick out to me. I
Really?
like the brass. Like I didn't mind that portion of it, but like that's you think of more of a brass military style band in any movie that is, meant to feel patriotic. So yeah, I'm not the worst on that one.
No.
Mm.
Well, what about like as we've kind of talked about the things that happen in terms of the plot? The plot is what it is, right? It's a very simple terrorist on a plane. You gotta you gotta take care of that situation,
Mhm.
right? But what about like the resolution, right? So Gary Oldman, he finally is able to use his bargaining chips, and he has his the first lady and the first child or first daughter, whatever you would
Mhm.
say, by gunpoint. And Harrison Ford's like, "All right, I'll do it," and he's crying. Very great emotional performance by Harrison
Harrison
Ford.
Ford, he's got range.
Awful performance by the child, but hey, you know,
She's a
bad casting
trickster. It's
choice.
okay. Um, the thing about this plot that I liked was while it was straightforward, they still were able to give you that mole. Like you got a little twisty in there as well. Like a hey, look at this.
Let me ask you about that. So, wouldn't you think the mole would be a little bit more inconspicuous about some of the stuff after the fact? Because there were plenty of times where he could have taken the president out and everyone out. You know, like I feel like there's some inconsistency there.
I feel like it's an opportune thing. Like, yeah, no, I'll help them. If they succeed, I'm good. If they don't, I still need to keep my job.
True, yeah, but I mean, your whole goal was to even if they fail, like, are you just going to keep that president alive? Like, when you didn't you do this job with the ultimate intention of like, we're going to fuck over the U.S. government? Might as well kill the president right now. Like, I
Well,
feel
but
like that was a big missed opportunity for that individual.
yeah, I think that when you're playing double agent like that, you got to be opportune. And I think the stress of trying to be opportune may have gotten to him a little bit.
He seemed like a stone cold Black Widow to me. I mean, he could have been in the Black Widow program. He was that stone cold. He could have been a little bit more or a little less obvious with some of the looks that he was giving, considering the fact that he was in a room full of people. But I
Yeah.
don't know if this was a reality TV show, everyone would be like, "I'm not sure, but I think that guy's a mole."
You're a traitor.
The mole. I mean, there always has to be a mole in those situations,
Yeah,
right?
no.
So that's another stereotype that has to happen, where it's like, oh, you can't get this close to the president unless it's an inside job. And yeah, it's an inside job.
Oh man. You know what I loved about this movie though? That they let him land the plane. Like
Believable in my. I don't.
uh,
I don't see a problem with it.
none at all. No. No, it's failing. It's going to crash. There's an engine out. We got shit falling out the back of it. We're bringing that bitch in. It's like
Yeah.
airplane. Like I would love to see a mashup of like the close-up shots of airplane of him like sweating and the people freaking out and Harrison Ford landing this plane. Like if there's somebody out there listening that wants to do a mashup, the landing scene from Air Force One and the landing scene from Airplane, I feel like they just fit.
Do you think that, or do you know if Harrison Ford happened to be a pilot in Vietnam?
I know that he is now, and I know that he's crashed some planes.
So that's where like I feel like it's just like, oh, they're gonna write that into the character that he knows how to fly a plane or
Maybe
something.
that's
Just not
maybe
that type
that's
of plane.
oh my god, maybe that's how he took the it was in his rider. He's like, "Oh, this is a movie on a plane? Well, I obviously have to fly the plane." By the way, I do a
uh,
terrible Harrison Ford. I 100% accept that. I'm not Mark Hamill, who should come on our podcast and do an impression of Harrison Ford negotiating the rider to Air Force One where he gets to fly the plane.
I will say that's you're probably one of your better impressions. So I'm perfectly
Oh,
fine with your Harrison Ford
oh,
impression.
oh.
He saves the day, right? Harrison Ford, Mr. President, saves the day. The celebration after it happens is so TV bad to me that it made Independence Day look fucking awesome.
Independence Day was awesome.
Not really. You know, and I know that the movie is pretty bad, but it's still fun, right? So that's where there's the difference of like you can have a bad movie but still have fun with it, and you know, no problem. But
Why do you
everyone
hate
kind of
Independence Day?
celebrating. What's that?
Why do you hate Independence Day?
That's just not a good movie. Everyone knows it's
Oh,
not a good movie. That movie sucks. But
dude,
it's
great movie. Also, great movie, President.
okay. The celebrations were hilarious. You've got everyone like erupting in praise, and then you got the one dude doing double thumbs up to the vice president. Like,
I just needed double guns,
who the
but
fuck
that was
does that?
inappropriate.
Like, where did that come from? Like, you
That's her
got
personal aid and body man.
oh my gosh, it was so funny to me. I was just like, yep. Are they going to break open a fresco right now and kind of pass it around the room? It's like, here, take a sip of this.
No, they're
And
gonna
it
have
just seemed
Doublemint
like
gum.
very comical. Yeah, Mentos, Papa Mentos afterwards.
Oh,
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I felt, and it seems like I'm shitting on the movie, but I think it's a movie, and I have to give my thoughts.
it's a movie with a president. I have one more question. Well, no, two more questions for you about this movie. I need to know where Harrison Ford as President James Marshall, which also funny that they used Marshall, um, where he ranks in your favorite fictional presidents.
Favorite fictional presidents of all
Favorite
time?
fictional presidents of all time.
I, he's definitely not in my top two, three, four, five, six. He's not in my top
Whoa.
six.
Not in your top six?
Not even close.
Oh man. So you want to go 5 for 5?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So let's go with a. Do you have a honorable mention that doesn't make the top five?
Yeah, I've got a couple, honestly, a couple honorable mentions there. Um, I think that Michael Douglas in The American President, though I love a good Sorkin written president, I couldn't. It just he was outside of it
Okay.
for me. Did you have any honorable mentions? I have one more.
It is. Let me just make sure I say the name right.
Ooh.
Benjamin Walker as Abe Lincoln, the Vampire Hunter.
Oh, my other honorable mention is Billy Bob Thornton in Love Actually. Just like
Oh, hold
that's
on.
my president.
I've got wait,
Oh,
one,
and
two.
Travolta in Primary Colors. Both of them representing an amazing, just so 90s president.
So I have another one. I'm sorry. It's James Adomian in Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay. That was my other
Ooh.
runner-up. Just the fact that he was George W. talking about cock meat sandwiches is hilarious to me. So that's why he is so high up on my
Underrated movie
president's
there.
list.
Underrated
So,
Harold and Kumar.
all right. So what about your number five?
My number 5 is from a movie that we've reviewed. A movie that we've reviewed. A giant Oscar winner in this movie who has what every great president in a movie has to have, which is a speech, a nice running monologue that ends with, "Can't we all just get along?" before he gets killed by Martians, and that's Jack Nicholson in Mars Attacks.
I
Gotta love
figured
some
that was going to
Jack.
come up. Yeah.
Gotta love some Jack. What about you? What's your number five?
So my number five is going to be um, a man of many disguises and many voices, but Dana Carvey is George Bush Sr. So I went both in TV and movies, and Dana
I'm good
Carvey is
with
my
TV
number
and
five.
movies. I love that, by the way. That's awesome. Um,
I'm not going to do it. Just not going to
This
do
is
it.
not
So
wouldn't be
good.
prudent. Wouldn't be prudent. I also went comedy with my number four, a movie that is so dumb it's great. The 1993 Kevin Kline led classic Dave,
Dude,
where Kevin
yeah,
Kline, for some reason, is the president and looks like it's so good. It's so funny.
I really like that movie. I
It's
think I've
underrated.
seen that movie in theaters like a couple times at
Ooh,
least at Bremen. So yeah, it was just a good movie. That's not my typical movie, but I like the fact that they had Kevin Kline as like this regular guy going into politics, and he just happens to solve like the deficit and a whole bunch of other shit that just is so refreshing that I think we all hope that we will have a president that can do that one day. But I mean, that's just a pipe dream. It's a Hollywood movie.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
never happen. We're fucked. So,
What about who's your number four?
my number four is going to follow up with another comedic performance, and that is Phil Hartman as Bill Clinton.
Oh, we're
One
going
of
the full SNL gamut.
one of my
Oh,
favorites, if not, no, it is my favorite SNL president. Phil Hartman is Bill Clinton. I
yeah.
remember the skits so vividly. I remember when the whole Monica Lewinsky thing was going on, and I remember there was a cop skit where they were talking about, or they were doing a parody of Bill Clinton getting caught having sex with someone, and he's just like, how does that feel right there? And the woman, I think it was like Ellen Cleghorn or something at the time, was saying like, it kind of hurts. Well, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Just like classic comedy Hartman.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, rest in peace, Phil Hartman. Best Bill
R.I.P.
Clinton ever.
What a great guy. Um, so my number three, only based on the number of people saved in their presidential movie, is Harrison Ford. Because he's there. Like, come on. You would vote for Harrison Ford.
Following up your pick is a similar pick. This is very rare that we have a similar pick in our top five for anything. But yeah, Dave. Dave was an awesome president. So
Yeah.
previously, Bill Mitchell was the president, but Dave Kovic comes in as the replacement president and does a better job
Yeah.
and falls in love with the first lady. So believable,
I
but
mean,
such a good
Sigourney
movie.
Weaver in that movie.
I like Sigourney
Also,
Weaver in that. That was
that
really
was
great.
I think that was the first movie where you really like Ghostbusters a little bit, but Sigourney Weaver's comedy chops in Dave,
Yeah.
so strong. And then Galaxy Quest, like all just Sigourney Weaver in funny movies, uh, just as good as Aliens. Number two for me is Going to Live On. He's going to survive, and that's because he killed a shitload of aliens, and that's Bill Pullman in Independence Day. I don't care what you say. He is widowed, and he's taking it out on the universe.
Also, my number two, Bill Pullman in Independence Day.
Yes,
That
you shit
speech,
on him. Oh,
that speech was great. I didn't shit on him. I shit on the
the
movie. The
movie.
movie itself
The movie
sucks.
was a warning for all of Hollywood that Will Smith be hitting people. That's what
Yeah.
it was.
Welcome to Earth.
Yeah, it's uh keep my wife's name out
Yeah.
your mouth. Same thing. Chris Rock and that alien, they're in a support group together. Um, that's amazing. I love that we're tied here. I
Yeah.
loved that he came back for the second one.
Didn't
Like,
he died in the second one, didn't he?
I think so.
Either that, he was like so fucked up. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was that second one sucked even harder.
It was not great, but it still had enough. Like, I didn't hate it. Like I would watch it again just because I enjoy the nostalgia and the references because that first Independence Day was so huge. I can honestly say I've probably seen that movie 25 times.
Overall, that movie's not great. I mean, there's a lot of plot holes in it, but if you're along for the ride, it's fine,
Oh, there's
which is
so
fun.
many
It's
plot
entertaining.
holes in it. Why does my Mac hook up to it? Because it's obviously an open, like all of the
Yeah.
Goldblum stuff in it made no sense. But getting Judd Hirsch in that, like, is it's that movie has it's just good.
They
It's a
did a good
family
job
movie.
juggling that cast.
Yeah,
This one is probably the best performance that I've seen for a president overall of all time. And I'm talking, and this is overshadowing like Daniel Day Lewis and all that shit. But I got to keep it real, and it's Jordan Peele as Obama is my number one.
I can't go there. I have to go with the president that I would vote for any situation, any issue, not a movie president, but the father of a son who is winning. I've got to go Martin Sheen. I've got to go Josiah Bartlett from the West Wing. The most well-spoken, inspirational, caring depiction of a president, probably because we got to see him for so long, but he was so good in that role that they changed the way the show was designed to get him more screen time. Like I love that show and I love Martin Sheen or Ramon Estevez in that role so much that I just want him to do more of it. Can he actually be the president? That would be an octogenarian and I would vote for.
I'm perfectly fine with that pick, and although I wasn't like a big West Wing fan, I've seen a few episodes of it, and yeah, it's very good, and he does a very good job in it. But you'll notice something with my list, even like my honorable mentions, all of them are
Funny.
comedic, all of them.
I'm so I have a question about your honorable mentions.
Hmm.
You left out one that I left out of honorable mentions and feel bad about because it ended up being an amazing Comedy Central special. Um, did you not like Will Ferrell as W?
I did. I am also not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, so his George W. just really played upon the stupidity of him, which is funny. Don't get me wrong.
Did
Strategery
you
is still a
watch
word I
the
use to this day. His type of comedy gets old very quick for me. So if it's something where it's like it's great in a movie because you can bounce off of different characters, like with Mark Wahlberg and the other guys,
yeah.
they bounce off of each other. There's also a bunch of other comedic actors in
Mm-hmm.
that movie. For Will Ferrell, if he's like going to be the focal point, I'm sure. And I'm not saying that it's not entertaining what you're talking about to watch, but at the same time, SNL is sometimes too long for me for Will Ferrell. Those skits are too long
Yeah.
for me because of him. So that's the reason why it's just not my bag, baby. It's not my bag.
It's okay.
But
It's
everyone
okay.
is in the comedic realm on my list is because I kind of think presidents are a joke anyways. So why not have fun with it? And that's why my list is the way it is. That's why you don't see Daniel Day Lewis. That's why you don't see Martin Sheen or I was like this close to putting Julia Louis Dreyfus on mine for her performance in Veep,
Yes.
but I was just like, I think these other people definitely edge her out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. But I do have one final question for you.
Ooh, you do? What
When
is
it
it?
comes to the Harrison Ford powerhouse, Air Force One, can you president this all day?
So music, got a strike there. The music score I thought was not fitting for it. The nostalgia is definitely there. You got Harrison Ford kicking some ass, doing some awesome 80s and 90s gunplay, just not giving a fuck, spraying bullets everywhere. Everyone's shooting from the hip. You've got some really realistic action fight scenes, which is nice. But there is a downside to that action where it's like there's some questionable deaths that would I felt like kind of detracted from the movie. So like at the final scene when they're trying to get off the plane, when William H. Macy gets shot, it's almost comedic. There was a few times that I just felt like, oh my God, this movie's a comedy. Another part with everyone jumping out of the airplane with parachutes on, like number one, that shit's not happening. You're gonna have men, women, children fucking freaking out if you're gonna jump out of an airplane at 15,000 feet. It's like even people that sign up and pay to do this yell and scream and
Mm-hmm.
and say that they don't want to do it. So I find it very hard to believe that you had at least 20 people jumping out of the plane. But the thing that got me, and I laughed out loud, and my wife was like, "What the hell? What's wrong?" Was the person that told him to use the fax machine. I can't
Where she
remember
was
her
like,
name.
hee
Yeah, and she's just like not a look of terror, just look of just sheer wonder of like, this is a nice little parachute ride. Like, get the fuck out of here. So that took me out of the scene right there. But
I
I
love
laughed.
that. That
I
was so
laughed and I
funny.
found it funny. It is. It
Oh.
is. But it's not intended to be funny, right? So that's the thing that just like, But this movie ended up turning into a comedy for me. So I was like, I want this to be a serious, fun action movie, not a cheesy, fun action movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
get you.
that is another thing that kind of puts a strike in the mark right there. But there is like the nostalgia is great, but yeah, it does suffer, and the plot itself is very simple. I do like the intricacies they talk about the 25th Amendment. I thought you bring up a very good point there, but overall, I just felt like okay, I'm rooting for Harrison Ford, but at the same time, I kind of want Gary Oldman to do some really villainous shit. I want him to off his wife or his awful actor of a daughter and just like, see you later, bye. You have to deal with it now, but it didn't happen. So for that reason in itself, the fact that Gary Oldman is not portrayed as the villain that I wanted him to be, that's probably the icing on the cake as to why I cannot do this all day.
Well,
But I'll give it right back to you. I think I know what the answer
yeah,
is.
there's no mystery to this. Like, I want this movie all day long. I'll watch it in a chair. I'll watch it with a bear, and I'll watch it in the air. Harrison Ford in this movie is amazing. So many great one-liners, and I'm just a fan. I can absolutely do this movie all day.
We will be back with more fun. And the next episode that we're going to do is going to have a little bit of music to it. So hopefully you guys tune into us next time. But until then, this is Dan, the part time Avenger. That's Mark, the resident Jedi.
Like, subscribe, give us your comments. What's your favorite movie president? And is there a movie that we should put in the queue for next President's Day, or perhaps any other school holiday that we should be doing movie reviews for? We look forward to your thoughts.
Happy President's Day and get off my podcast.